Hello, and welcome back to more Films Under Constant Critique, where we take a look at films, some good, some bad, and some downright awful. I'm Bongo Baikov, joined by our host Maverick Drenzaria. This week we're taking a look at the film Evil Dead 2, or as it was known in publicity materials, Evil Dead 2: Dead by Dawn.
You're all doomed. Oh, wait, wrong movie. Groovy. But anyway, Evil Dead 2, Dead by Dawn, which I don't think the opening credits have it called that.
No, the opening credits just say Evil Dead 2. It was like the posters and things had the subtitle Dead by Dawn.
Yep. Which is interesting. I usually just call it Evil Dead 2. I mean, that's simple enough, but yeah. And the budget was $3.5 million, so it cost more to make than the original one. And it also, I think it made more than, it made more than the original.
Yeah, it made about, what, 11 million?
About, yeah. And Bruce Campbell once again returns as Ash, with Sam Raimi back in the director's chair. And this one goes a very different direction from the first movie, while also sort of remaking it.
Yeah, so the vibe is a little different. It's more of a horror comedy compared to the first one, which was just a straight up horror film.
Yep. It feels sort of like a affectionate parody of the first one.
Yeah, in a lot of spots it really does. And the beginning of the movie is interesting because like the first 7 or so minutes are essentially just a recreation of the first movie, but without certain characters.
Yeah. Because they just have Ash and his girlfriend.
Yeah, and Lisa. Linda, sorry, it's Linda, not Lisa. What am I talking about?
She played by the same actress from the first one, or?
I don't think so. I haven't checked, but I remember that actually being when Ash vs. Evil Dead came out. The original Linda actor came back, and so people kind of made a deal about that. But
interesting. And the first one was distributed by New Line Cinema, while this one was distributed by Dino De Laurentiis.
Huh.
So this sort of counts as an Italian horror film. It also was given a limited release, but was able to build up a large cult following. So yes, this is another movie on our podcast, which is a cult film. And it is also slightly shorter than the first movie.
Yeah, it's 86 minutes?
84 minutes, and the first one was 85.
That's awfully consistent between movies, actually.
Yeah. I guess they were kind of remaking it, so they remake in the opening, they basically remake the first one, and then they just... Anyway, we'll get to that. It was also released without a rating, because they knew it would probably get an X rating if they submitted it to the MPAA due to the violence. So that makes this our second movie on the podcast that is technically X-rated.
And both of them back to back.
And the president of the distribution company for the movie said that if they cut the movie to be R-rated, it would be only 62 minutes long. Because, let's be real, this movie is definitely more violent than the first one.
It is insanely gory throughout.
There is so much blood in this, and there's also just, there's also more gross-out gags, too.
Yeah. And even before we begin, something else that's very interesting is Ash feels like such a completely different character in this movie.
He does, yeah. He does. Especially towards the end.
Yeah. But even at the beginning, he feels like a lot more cocky, a lot more self-confident.
Yeah. So, we could start with our initial thoughts on the movie. I don't know if you want to start.
Yeah, so I really only have a few quick things about it. So I think I mentioned this last time. I once watched the Evil Dead trilogy with my friends in this weird jerry-rigged home theater setup. And
That sounds
we
like it'd be
watched.
fun.
It was pretty fun. We actually watched this one back to back with the original Evil Dead,
Oh man,
which actually works really well.
that sounds insane.
It's honestly a pretty good time to watch the two back to back. And I was actually thinking about, without getting too far ahead, but there's a scene about 7.5 minutes, 8 minutes in. That's basically just it's just the final shot from the first movie. I was thinking about how interesting it would be to watch these two movies edited together at that point in time.
Yeah, sync them up. Yeah, that would be
Yeah.
interesting. And I probably hinted at it before in like our first podcast, but I personally like this one more than the first Evil Dead movie. Cause let's see, to sum this movie up, it's fucking insane. It's insane in the membrane.
And a lot of that can be contributed to the fact that Sam Raimi was behind it.
It moves faster than you could say Jack Robinson. I mean, like, shit is just flying at you, like, every 5 minutes.
So, I don't know about you, but so far I've seen the new Doctor Strange movie twice. Watching it alongside the Evil Dead movies makes you, like, it's all just so insane.
Yeah, I mean, Sam Raimi, and this movie especially, the pacing on this, it is so fast.
It just keeps moving. You don't really have any moment to catch your breath.
There's like no breathing room at all. It's like they had a movie which was slightly longer, and then they just cut out all of the like
the slower scenes. Like, no, we got to keep it moving. It can't be longer than the first movie.
Yeah, there wouldn't be the last time that Sam Raimi did a sequel that a lot of people consider better than the first one. The other one being Spider-Man 2. You know, a movie I also really enjoy. Oh, and Bruce Campbell's also in that.
Yeah.
Bruce Campbell. That's another trilogy that Sam Raimi did that Bruce Campbell is in. And speaking of Bruce Campbell, this movie, I mean, you can see why he's a B-movie icon because of this movie.
Oh, yeah.
I mean...
Oh, yeah.
like, pretty amazing performance right here.
He is, I'll get into this a bit more later, but he is a fantastic physical actor.
And he's great at, like, making these really silly lines seem natural.
Yeah.
That's one challenge when you're in, like, a movie with a tone like this, is you have to, like, seem like... And it seems like he actually believes what he's saying, you know? Like
I know. He plays the role so incredibly well. It's hard to describe, but it's almost like the acting is, like, perfectly matched with the tone.
I don't even know where to start with this movie. That's the thing. Like, I remember watching it. Okay, after I finished watching it, I actually felt... Because I was, like, wondering if maybe I'd want to, like, watch the next one afterwards. But after I watched this, I was like, you know what? Actually, I need a break. Because, like, I guess around the time I was watching this, the other stuff I'd been watching, I guess, was just slower paced. So this just really caught me off guard.
It just hit you like a hammer upside the head.
They kind of do the same movie again, but then they're also making jokes, too. You know?
Yeah. And here's the thing, it manages to both be, like, actually, like, pretty creepy and pretty funny at the same time.
It does, yeah.
Throughout a lot of it. Like,
special effects,
I'm so impressed.
That's another thing. The budget, you know, was increased, so the special effects were able to shine a little more. Unlike the first one and Army of Darkness, this one kind of has more of this, like, synthesis between being a comedy and being a horror movie, whereas both of those two movies, they don't have that.
Yeah, the first one's definitely, like, just a horror movie, and the third one's more of an action comedy with minor horror elements.
And it's funny, too, because, like, I saw Army of Darkness before I saw the first two movies, so watching the first one was really jarring.
Yeah, it's like, if you go in with the expectation of it's gonna feel like Army of Darkness,
No, it is.
No, it's so incredibly different.
I think I might have been laughing at like some of the acting and stuff,
Yeah.
and like maybe some of the effects, but for the most part, I was like, because I think the first time I saw it, there were a few jump moments that got me.
Mm.
And hell, even when I rewatched it, there were a few moments that I was like, "Oh god,
Yeah.
gotta keep this one moving fast, yo." Just like Sam Raimi does.
So at the very beginning, we have Professor Nobi actually giving us just a bit of exposition. So we actually learn that the book now has a different name. It is now the Necronomicon Ex Mortis, the Book of the Dead.
By H.P. Lovecraft, but anyway.
Yes, its page is bound in flesh and written in blood. It has these incantations that can raise ancient Kandarian demons. And of course, Professor Nobi, being the wise old man he is, he reads aloud from the book on a tape recorder, so that anytime it's played back, it can raise the spirits of the dead. And then,
wait, so when he was reading it, did he realize by reading it out loud it would like summon demons, or did he just realize that on accident?
I think he realized it afterwards, and he was like, "Huh, well, shit."
Why didn't he just destroy the tapes or something?
I know, it's like, just take out that part so no one's gonna play it again, Mr. Nobi.
It's the same with like Gremlins. All this could have been solved if you just hadn't fed the fuckers after midnight. And I thought like the opening also kind of gave me a Twilight Zone vibe.
Yeah, I could feel that.
It kind of looked like the opening to the Twilight Zone. They don't say you're about to enter another dimension, but anyway.
I actually, kind of speaking about that, I actually felt like it did have kind of an old, like, 50s or 60s vibe throughout a lot of the intro. Like, before it really gets scary.
Yeah.
It just feels like older than it is. I don't know how to describe it. I think it might be the way that just Bruce Campbell talks during that part of the movie and the soundtrack, but it does feel like it's a bit older, which is interesting.
After that, you basically get a brief remake of the first film. It's like a recap.
Yep. So instead of 5 friends going up to a cabin that
they could just do the Rocky thing and just play footage from the fight from the previous movie. But anyway.
So instead of it being the 5 friends that go to the cabin, it's just Ash and his girlfriend Linda. And here's something. They're not renting the cabin. They're basically breaking into this empty cabin that Ash found.
That's even worse. Like, Christ.
Because at that point, whose fault is it that your girlfriend gets possessed and you have to cut her up? I mean, really.
Let's just break into some random cabin that we've never been to. We don't know who owns it. Nothing is gonna go wrong. I mean...
Can you imagine just the sheer absolute bad luck involved with just randomly picking that cabin?
Yeah. What's next? Is Camp Crystal Lake like 2 miles from there and they accidentally break into that? Jeez. And also I was noticing when they're going across the bridge, there's a lot of model work.
Yeah. Oh, that was actually something else that I noticed. The bridge is huge.
Yeah, it's not very big in the first one.
Yeah, it's very different from the bridge in the first one.
So that's interesting.
And then another difference is actually the cabin is like super clean when they get there. It's actually like a really nice cabin.
But not later on. And they go in the cabin. Ash, he plays the piano while what's her name is dancing around in her underwear.
Yeah.
And she has a necklace, again, kind of like in the first one.
Yeah, with the magnifying glass on it.
Yeah, I also was noticing already these two have better chemistry than Bruce Campbell did with the actress in the first movie.
Yeah.
And it's like the first 10 minutes, and I was already realizing.
And so Linda goes to change, and Ash turns on this tape recorder he found, which is a recording of Professor Noby reading out loud the pages of the Necronomicon and raising the dead. And by the dead, I mean the evil, or whatever it's called.
The evil. They just called the evil. Every villain is lemons.
And so we actually get a shot that's kind of similar to a shot from the first movie when, the evil, whatever you want to call it, breaks through Linda's window.
Yeah, the window, yeah.
Yeah, because there's a few shots in this beginning sequence that look pretty similar to shots from the first movie.
I wonder if somebody probably has, but if somebody's like taken like a side by side like comparison of like the shots in this movie and the shots in the first one,
people probably have.
Because maybe it's not shot for shot because they changed so much, obviously, but like, who knows? Maybe it's close. Maybe it just feels close because it's also Sam Raimi.
Yeah, that is actually a very good point. It's the same director doing it again.
I'll give Army of Darkness this. I haven't rewatched it yet, but it doesn't just straight up remake the first one.
Yeah. Like, the beginning is similar but not identical to the ending of this movie. And there is like that brief recap of Evil Dead 2. But it doesn't linger nearly as long.
Because more people saw this than the first one. I wonder, the people who saw the first one, when they watched this one, how confused were they?
I imagine pretty confused. Although if we're honest, this is still nowhere near as bad as Silent Night, Deadly Night 2.
Oh yeah, don't they literally reuse footage from the first one in that?
So the movie, it's like 88 minutes long. There's 40 minutes of footage from the first movie.
Yeah. That's incredibly fucking cheap. And then like the rest of it is just like, its own thing, which that's where
Garbage Day.
Yeah, that's where the Garbage Day quote is from. I really like that umbrella kill in that movie. That's hilarious.
That one's fun.
That was hilarious. Maybe we'll do that come Christmas time. But anyway, just not even the first one. We'll not even review the first one.
No, we don't need to. The second half of the second one is the first one.
Basically, yeah. That is such a... That's such a bad gimmick.
I know.
At least this one, like, they don't... I don't know. It's only like the first, 15 minutes or 10 minutes that's just recapping the first one, but anyway. Let's just have half of our movie be the first movie. Oh, okay. This is a bit of trivia, but it explains a few things. Apparently, they couldn't get the rights to footage from the first movie.
I think I've heard of that before.
So that's why they refilmed it. I assume if they had the rights, they probably would just...
Yeah, used footage from the first one again.
Which they do in, like... There are other horror movies that do that. Like, the Friday the 13th movies do that.
Yeah.
Some of them.
And actually kind of building off of that, in the Ash vs. Evil Dead TV show, they were able to get the rights for Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2, but not for Army of Darkness.
So it's like what? Is it like an alternate universe where Army of Darkness never happened?
Well, they ended up getting the rights for like the second season, so in the first season, they only directly reference and show footage from the first two movies.
Depending on the cut of Army of Darkness, like, how does he get back to how does he get back to the present day? But anyway. So, what's her name? Linda?
Yep.
She turns into a demon. Because, of course, it's one of those kinds of movies. And he cuts her head off with a shovel, buries her. So, again...
It's basically, just what he had to do to her in the first movie again.
That confused me so much. So they refilmed... They redid the first one, but basically just for those two characters. Why didn't they include the other three? Were they trying to, simplify it?
Maybe. And that is actually something that's very interesting about Ash vs. Evil Dead. Like I mentioned, they had the rights to the first two movies. So they kind of had to work around that a little bit. So what they did is it was Ash and his four friends, so the five characters show up, and then it's basically the first movie happens until uh where it's like the same scene from the end of the first movie and like part of the way through the beginning of this movie. And then from there it's Evil Dead 2 that happens. It's confusing to explain, but basically they say that most of Evil Dead 2 happened, except it was all five of Ash's friends.
I don't understand the changes they made here, because
the only thing I could think of would be to make it a bit more simplified.
I guess, like, this makes more sense than what happened in the first movie, but it's still, like...
It's easier to recap when you cut out more than half the cast.
And also just the fact they change it so, they broke into the cabin, basically.
Yeah.
Instead of, they rented it. Why would they rent that? Why would they just go to the woods and, like, where should we stay for, like, the weekend? Oh, here we go, just this cabin in some woods far away. Just... the thinking behind that, but then again, breaking into the it doesn't make sense either way. Either way, it makes these characters look really kind of stupid.
Yeah. So anyway, Ash proceeds to bury Linda's headless body. And then I believe that's when the end of the first movie happens.
Yeah, the camera attacks him and it throws Bruce Campbell just through trees. And this part was hilarious.
It's so great. It goes on for so long.
And also just the expression he's making too. Just like...
yeah. And he's just constantly like spinning in place.
His face ends up landing in a puddle, and then he looks up, and you see his face has turned into a demon face.
Yeah.
Until the sun comes up, and his eyes go back to normal, and all the fog goes away.
Yeah. That's actually a really cool special effect when you see, like, the fog clear from Ash's eyes.
And the fog, like, goes into, like, it vanishes into this log. That was an interesting...
Yeah.
Like, I didn't know that's where that went. And he looks around the woods. Everything seems peaceful. Tries driving away, but the bridge was curled up.
Yep, just like in the first movie.
And again, this is where you see where the budget affects things. Just more extensive model work here on the bridge, and especially the cliffs. The cliffs look really good here, actually.
They do.
And then daytime just abruptly shifts to nighttime, which...
It just stops. It's like someone flipped a switch.
How fucking long was he standing out there?
I guess for a while.
Or do these demons just control time, too? Or maybe they're like Ed Harris's character in The Truman Show. He's just operating like the moon and the sun. Well, the fake moon and the sun, because it's...
Yeah.
A guy's... it's a TV show, but anyway. And so maybe the demons are doing that.
Do you know how traumatizing that would be for Ash if it turned out to be a Truman Show style?
Let's see. Like somebody goes, the ratings are down. What should we do? Let's add some demons.
Throw them into a haunted cabin. See what happens.
That's the old... I guess that's sort of like what they did in Cabin in the Woods, but...
Yeah. I say I haven't actually seen that movie, but I know the twist.
The only part of Cabin in the Woods that I like is the ending, just because of how crazy it is, but the rest of it, it's stupid. Anyway... He drives off into the forest, hitting more trees. How many fucking trees is he gonna hit? Before eventually he crashes and goes through the windshield, which, another thing, you'd think by this point he'd have more broken bones.
Nah, he's just got a million cuts on his face.
You know how much abuse he's going through just in the first 15 minutes of this movie?
At this point, Ash is more like a Three Stooges character, if we're honest.
Oh, he definitely is, yeah.
He can take a lot of abuse.
I mean, his hair already looks like Mo, so... he gets chased around by the camera, which, again...
For a really long time.
It doesn't feel very long, though, because everything's just going at, like, a breakneck speed, like...
And he ends up actually
also,
somehow...
another thing, this camera is really loud, too.
Oh, it is very loud. I actually...
In the first movie, I don't remember it making all these wailing sounds and stuff like it does in this one, but...
So, I actually have my TV hooked up to, like, a sound system. I had to keep turning it down throughout the film because the screaming was getting so loud.
Oh, man. You live in, like, an apartment, right?
Yeah.
So, like, imagine, like, the person in the room next to you just going, what the fuck is that? And I like how the camera, like, loses him at one point. It's like, looking around in empty rooms.
Yeah.
Before it just retreats backwards into the woods. It basically moonwalks.
He moonwalks very fast. Because Ash was somehow able to trick the evil by hiding underneath the trapdoor.
I guess this monster is Michael Jackson now or something. This was a few years after Thriller, so hey.
Yeah.
And then we get introduced to some new characters. You know, the movie had to stop for a little bit for basically the only breathing room you get in this movie.
So we meet Annie Noby, who is the daughter of the professor who owns the cabin, and her boyfriend, Ed. And in this scene, we learn that Annie Noby has just gotten back from... I don't know if they say from where, but she basically returns with some missing pages from the Necronomicon.
Isn't she like an archaeologist or something?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. And she's like wondering if maybe the professor found a doorway to another world.
Yeah.
And then we cut back to Ash in the house. That would be an interesting sequel if they made one just called Ash in the House.
This is honestly like a lot of the stuff that happens around here are just some of my favorite parts throughout the movie.
Yeah, basically by this point he's just gone crazy. You know, he can't even open a door without being careful.
Yeah. And
it's really dark in this house too. I guess there aren't very many light switches or something.
Yeah.
So, among the things out of the piano plays itself.
Yep.
I guess it's the ghost of Chico Marx or something. While he's looking at the necklace.
And then he ends up looking outside and he sees Linda's corpse get up and just start dancing around.
This scene, the first time I saw it, this part killed me.
It's so funny.
It is. It looks like and it's doing it like and her body's headless too, and it's just dancing around and with stop motion effects. It looks like something out of Nightmare Before Christmas.
It really does. I was actually thinking that too.
This is Halloween. This is Halloween.
And then Linda
ends up that being in the intro of that movie. Actually.
Yeah. And so Linda disappears off into the woods.
She also puts her head back on and it spins around, which again, a very unsubtle Exorcist reference there.
And so she ends up running off into the woods, and then Ash gets close to the window to look for her, and suddenly she jumps up and she's right by the window. And then suddenly Ash is back in the rocking chair screaming.
Which I gotta say, the makeup here is really good. It's definitely an improvement on the first movie. The makeup in the first movie was passable for a low budget, but here, again, bigger budget, so that helps.
Yeah.
The demons in this movie look really creepy.
Oh, completely. Like, especially as we get later on, all of the Deadites just look so grotesque.
Yep. And Ash, he gives a funny scream. And
Yeah.
then he realizes he's stuck in a chair. Her decapitated head falls through the ceiling into his lap and torments him.
It bites his hand, and he's just like smacking it into everything he possibly can.
I love the dark humor in this movie. It's so good. And then he just like turns to the off to the side and says, "Work shed." That's one of the two most famous lines from this movie.
Yeah. And so he ends up running to the work shed, shoves Linda's head into a vice, and decides he's gonna cut her, just basically cut her head open. And so he pulls back the curtain where the chainsaw should be, and instead there's a chalk outline of a chainsaw where it should be.
I didn't notice that.
I was like, why would there need to be a chalk outline of the chainsaw?
That's where the dead chainsaw was lying when they were investigating the murder, I guess.
And so then Linda's body ends up running in with the chainsaw.
This part was insane.
Oh, it was so funny. It was so good. And so it's trying to slash Ash. And Bruce looks actually terrified by all this because it looks like an insane puppet is trying to cut him with a chainsaw.
I mean, I'd be scared too. I mean, this is fucking crazy, man.
And so he ends up using like I think it was a crowbar or something, and like basically pushes the chainsaw back and causes the body to start cutting itself in half with the chainsaw.
Yeah, which basically ends up killing her.
Yeah.
Not to mention, he's doing this to his girlfriend too.
Yeah.
Or, well, the possessed body of his girlfriend.
Yeah. And once the body's dead, he picks up the chainsaw and cuts the head in half.
And blood gets on the light bulb and the lens turns red.
Blood just goes everywhere in this movie.
Yep. Blood, your blood, Lance's blood. Ever seen blood? Well, if you haven't, there you go. This is what it looks like. I find it funny, though, that they actually called back to that part in the first movie where the light bulb was, like, dripping blood. It makes more sense here, though.
It does. I feel like there's a couple things they do in this movie that just feel like they make more sense than they did in the original.
Yeah, because in the original, it seemed like they were just doing that just because we can have some cool, fucked up imagery.
Yeah.
Because why not? It's a low-budget movie. Oh, maybe this will help with distribution. And he goes to get a shotgun. Or a boomstick.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. He doesn't call it that until Army of Darkness. Anyway.
And so while he's loading the shotgun, he ends up going to a mirror and he tries to tell himself that everything is fine.
Also, there's like this suddenly rocking chair moving.
Oh, yeah.
Just for no reason. This poor guy, he's just going insane.
And so...
but yeah, the mirror scene, you can talk about this part.
Yeah, so he goes up to the mirror and he's like, it's fine. Everything's fine. And then the Ash in the mirror, he like reaches his hands out and he's like, fine, this is not fine. You just cut up our girlfriend with a chainsaw. And he starts choking Ash. And then the camera does like this like cool trick where then it starts zooming out and you see that Ash is actually standing in front of the mirror choking himself.
Or maybe they used a fake shemp for that part.
Yeah.
But yeah, that part was, oh man. That part really made me laugh. And it's funny, actually, because I was watching some SpongeBob episodes recently. I forgot, there's actually a similar gag in a SpongeBob episode.
I think I know what you're talking about, but I don't remember the episode.
It was the one where they have to paint Mr. Krabs' house.
That's right. Yeah, wasn't it, Oh, because, yeah, Mr. Krabs was coming home, and SpongeBob's reflection says you're on your own, pal, and leaves the mirror.
That's the one. That's the one. Which I remember watching that and just going, wait a minute, is that a reference to Evil Dead 2? So, that's two SpongeBob episodes references in one podcast already. his hand gets black markings on it, sort of like in the first one.
With like the foot wound that had the pencil, except now it's the hand with the bite marks.
And his arm gets possessed and starts attacking it.
And I love this part because it like perfectly shows Bruce Campbell's physical acting.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. And it also kind of reminded me of in Doctor Strangelove when his hand goes out of control and is trying to do the Nazi salute, you know. But yeah. Yeah, you definitely get to see Bruce Campbell's physical acting here.
How many breakaway plates did Bruce Campbell have to hit over his head for this one scene?
I don't know. It's also sort of like a thing from the Addams Family, too.
Yeah.
A little bit. Just his hand basically has a mind of its own, you know. It even makes noises, too, which I like.
Yeah. It's like squeaking, almost like a rat or a mouse.
Yeah. He also, Bruce Campbell has a pretty good line read where he says, "Give me back my hand!"
Oh yeah, because he's like yelling out, because like he's had everything else taken from him, and now they're trying to take his hand.
They're trying to take control of his own body away from him. And then we get a little bit of a break.
Yep.
Another scene of Annie and the blonde guy.
Yep, Id. And they end up running into a redneck named Jake, who's putting out basically signs saying that the road is closed because the bridge has curled up into a strange hand shape.
Which, that was an interesting detail, too, that it, like, curled up in a specific shape.
Yeah.
Because in the first movie, it's just... I mean... oh, the bridge is out, we can't go through there, whereas here,
yeah.
You know, they added a little more detail. And then eventually they decide, hey, let's just drive to the cabin. You know, these two people we've never met, let's just drive them to the cabin.
Well, they don't drive them to the cabin, they walk with them on a trail. And they're also joined by Bobby Joe, who is Jake's wife.
Bobby Joe. Wife, sister, I don't remember.
I think it's supposed to be his wife or his girlfriend or something.
I will say, though, one problem I did have with the first movie that was less of a problem with this one is I think the characters in this one are better.
Oh, yeah. You definitely care about these characters more than you cared about Cheryl.
Yeah. Or, what was the one guy's name? Scotty?
Yeah, Scotty.
Scotty, the selfish dick who decided to leave everybody to die. And then poor Ash, we cut back to, you know, we give you a little bit of breathing room only to just go back into crazy town. Because poor Ash, he's still dealing with his possessed hand.
And so eventually
Why are you hitting yourself? Why are you hitting yourself?
And so eventually Ash acts as if he's unconscious, and the hand somehow sees there's a cleaver on the ground.
He so basically wrecks the whole kitchen.
Oh, it's just completely destroyed.
Oh, it's so good. He wrecks the kitchen, just destroys all of the dishes, and destroys the saltine crackers, too.
Oh, yeah, that's right. And so the hand ends up seeing a knife and tries to drag Ash to it so the hand can kill Ash. But I guess Ash was faking the whole time because he just stabs his hand with like a kitchen knife into the ground.
Yep.
And then we get what's honestly a very bloody scene.
Yeah, he cuts it off with a chainsaw and just blood just...
everywhere, all over his
face.
Blood
on his face, big disgrace, waving his banner all over the place.
And he starts, doesn't he start yelling like, who's so laughing now or something? He
gets so much blood on himself in this movie and in
I know.
the previous one. The poor guy. It's a good thing he just fights skeletons in the next one. You know? No blood there, but yeah, this is a really bloody movie.
It is very, and in this scene, it's like even like somewhat like realistic because you see the blood spatter going on his face from him having to cut off his own hand.
It doesn't get realistic later on, but yeah.
And so he
and
ends
it was
up...
also at this point in the movie, I looked at how far I was into the movie. I could not believe that 31 minutes had gone by already.
I know. When I was actually, like, when we were getting towards the end, I was like, okay, I remember, like, this happens, but, like, how far into the movie? It's like there was 20 minutes left, and there was still, like, plot points we hadn't gotten to yet.
It is impressive how fast the pace is in this movie.
Yeah.
Because, like, even the first movie is only 1 minute shorter. 1 minute longer
1 minute
than
longer,
this movie.
yeah.
And it feels slower,
Yeah.
than this one. But this one, oh my god, it's like you're running just a crazy marathon or something. Like, just, you can't, like, Christ.
It is just nonstop.
Yeah. So she goes into the bathroom, accidentally has sex with a dead guy. Oh wait, wrong movie. I've been watching Clerks recently. There's like a stack of books.
Yeah, and did you catch what the top book he puts on top of the pail
Farewell
is?
to Arms.
Yeah.
I was having like, oh god, god damn it! I just realized the pun there. I just thought it was funny that there was an Ernest Hemingway book in this cabin, because I was like, I guess it was the professor's book, but yeah, that's incredible. Oh man, that's a great visual gag that I actually didn't get while I was watching. That's really funny. Literally right after losing his hand.
Yeah, it's a pretty good visual gag.
That's good.
Despite Ash's efforts to trap his hand underneath this bucket, it ends up getting away, and ends up running into like a mouse hole in the walls.
It gets caught in a mouse trap.
Yeah. And then it flips off Ash.
Yeah, it gets loose and gives him the finger. That was pretty good.
And so Ash is trying to...
These demons are such assholes.
They're so funny, though.
They are, yeah. And then he finally shoots it in the wall, and the most ridiculous amount of blood just shoots out of the wall.
It's just insane how much blood just spurts out. It's like they had like a fire hose behind that wall, and they're just blasting Bruce with it.
Yeah, like, Christ, did he shoot Moses in that wall? I mean...
And then the blood starts turning like black, and then it goes in reverse, and it just stops.
This also
so
reminds me
suddenly.
A bit of, Nightmare on Elm Street too, when Johnny Depp gets killed.
Yeah.
Which there are references to Nightmare on Elm Street in this series. So.
Yeah, because there is the Freddy Krueger glove that appears.
Yeah, we'll get to that. And then we get to one of my favorite parts of this movie.
I'm glad that this is also one of your favorite parts. I love this part.
This is one of the most memorable parts for me, because the entire house is just coming alive, including the mounted deer on the wall. And everything's just... like, all the appliances in the house, just everything. It's just laughing maniacally at him.
And then Ash starts laughing too, because he's just finally starting to lose it.
Which is one of the most iconic shots of the movie, is that shot of him just staring directly at the camera. He's got blood all over him, he's just laughing. Whenever you look up a picture of Ash, that's a shot
like
that's
one of the first things that come up.
To pop up, Another thing, I'm trying to imagine somebody walking into the movie at this part, not knowing what this movie is, and just being very confused as to what the fuck is going on. Because it's just, it's insane.
It would be indecipherable to just walk in on this scene.
It's insane in the membrane. Or, sorry, let me rephrase that. It's a Sam Raimi movie.
Exactly. And so everything's laughing until Ash hears someone moving outside, at which point everything just stops and he fires 2 shots through the door.
Which, did they hear all the laughing?
That's a good question. I don't think they ever mentioned the laughing, but I would assume they would at least hear Ash laughing.
Maybe he's just gone so crazy that he's hallucinating. like something out of like Hellraiser or something, where they just have people down in hell and then they just torment them by showing them visions and shit. But he gets tackled by the redneck guy, I think.
Yeah, he's tackled by Jake at first, and then Ed has to come help him hold Ash's arms down.
He like punches him a few times. The other guy punches him and knocks him out.
Yeah.
And Annie, she shows up and basically thinks that Ash murdered her parents.
Yep. And so they end up locking him in the cellar.
Just as he's waking up, too, because they like knocked him out.
Yeah.
And he hits his head on every one of the stairs before finally hitting the floor. How the fuck is he not dead? I mean...
he's built out of whatever the Three Stooges are built out of.
I guess, yeah. Or he... Like, at the very least, you'd think he'd have a concussion or broken bones. Like... Because, ouch. Annie and the others, they listen to the tape.
And this is honestly another one of my favorite scenes just because of the build-up to this moment.
It's pretty good build-up, yeah.
So, they hear Professor Nobi talking about how something evil in the woods came out after he read from the Necronomicon, and that he had to kill his wife, Henrietta, but he couldn't bring himself to dismember her, so instead he just buried her body in the fruit cellar.
But Ash is in the cellar.
And I think, can Ash hear the recording as well? I don't remember.
He can hear it, yeah. He's like, I think he's hearing it. And
yeah, he's hearing it.
About to happen.
And he's like, oh god. And then we see Henrietta's head just burst through the floor.
And I love his scream here, too. It's so
it's
funny.
so good.
And again, I gotta say, the demon makeup in this is really good. And her face even changes, too.
Yeah.
It, like, changes. I don't even know what the fuck it changes into.
It's like all the skin tightens, but then, like, the bones also kind of deform, so it just looks, like, grotesque.
It's so fucked up. Again, it's like something out of, like, Nightmare on Elm Street, or one of the sequels, you know? And also, the wife demon here was actually played by Ted Raimi.
Yeah.
And just when you think this movie couldn't get crazier, it goes completely nuts. They smash the demon with the cellar door. Her eye pops out and it lands in one girl's mouth.
Yeah, it lands in Bobby Joe's mouth.
Yuck. Pretty funny, though. That's actually a pretty good gross out gag there.
Yeah.
I'm not the biggest fan of gross out humor, but that one works, I think.
Yeah.
And then they trap the demon in the cellar.
And after
so like in the first movie, wait a minute.
Yeah, that's pretty similar to when they locked Ash's sister in the cellar.
Yeah. And Ash, he says there's something out there. He gives a really good monologue here.
Yeah.
Saying, you know, it lives out in those woods. And these lines could have come across as really silly. But Bruce Campbell's delivery, he's delivering them with conviction here. You know, that's some... Yeah. You know, again, you can see why he's such a highly regarded guy in the cult movie circuit.
And during the earlier fight with the Henrietta demon, Ed gets thrown into the wall. I think through like a painting or something, and like it smacks his head pretty bad. The
demon basically pretends to be Annie's mother to lure her in, which this was a creepy scene. That's the thing about this movie. It is a comedy, but there are genuinely creepy scenes in it, too.
There are. This one was very creepy.
Yeah. And we get the appearance of yet another demon.
Yep, so it turns out Ed is now a Deadite.
Christ. And he looks even more horrifying than the other one, too.
It's so... Especially, like, the mouth. He has, like, multiple rows of teeth.
And they're, like, basically saying, we want what is yours, life. And they keep shouting, dead by dawn, over and over again.
Yeah, they're telling them all that they'll be dead by dawn. And then he throws Jake upwards and breaks a light bulb with Jake's head.
It's a very action-packed movie, that's for sure.
Yeah. And then Ash ends up hacking Ed to pieces with like an axe that was nearby.
And also the demon rips off some of the girl's hair too.
Oh yeah, that's right. He bites off some of her hair.
Yeah. Which I have to ask, okay, because you saw the new Doctor Strange movie.
Yeah.
How much of this is in that movie?
There's honestly quite a bit. Like you'd honestly be surprised. It's the only Marvel movie that I've seen that actually has like gore.
Oh wow.
Like it
Is it PG-13 or
I think it is PG-13, but there's like actually some gore in it, which absolutely shocked me. I was not expecting it.
I mean, Sam Raimi gets away with quite a bit in a PG-13 movie.
Yeah.
I mean, like some of the scenes of Spider-Man 2 with Doc Ock,
Yeah.
kind of feel like a horror movie. Or hell, even the Green Goblin,
Yeah.
I kind of want to see that one.
You really do need to see it.
I'll be totally honest, I'm really burnt out on like MCU stuff, but I might watch that one.
The only warning that I would give for that is like the first 15 to 20 minutes feel like every other Marvel movie. But there's like one particular scene that you watch and you know that it's time for it to become a Sam Raimi movie. Because it's actually a reference to the first Evil Dead.
He's like trying to like ease people in and then just catch them off guard. Oh, that's so funny.
And then it just starts going off the rails after that. It's amazing.
Going off the rails? Are there even any rails in a Sam Raimi movie? Ash, he like uses the axe, chops the guy up, and green goo is just spraying everywhere.
Yeah.
That's something I noticed here. Unlike in the first movie, where he like hesitates to use the axe.
He doesn't here. He immediately goes for it. He's learned his lesson.
It's sort of like this movie is his do-over of the first movie.
Yeah.
Now that I think about it, like he's like, oh, I fucked up in the first movie, but here I can finally make it right. And now my cat came downstairs. Of course. One guy, he points out that the trail they came in on just disappeared.
Yeah. I don't know how the evil did that, but apparently it just took away an entire trail.
I like this line here where he says it's like the woods just swallowed it up.
Yeah.
That's a really interesting line right there. And they don't even show it either.
Nope.
You have to imagine it yourself. That's just so weird, man.
And then we get to one of the weirder scenes in the movie.
Of course, being a Sam Raimi movie, you got a lot of weird camera angles too.
Yeah.
They look sort of slightly bent a bit, like the film, like they bent the film a little bit.
They do. They definitely do.
Because it looks unnatural.
Everything's all like kind of stretched and skewed.
Like it's not quite a Dutch angle, but like it's sort of
like it looks like they shot it normally and then they took like Photoshop and then just like dragged it out essentially.
Well, I didn't have Photoshop back then, but yeah, sort of like that. And there's an interesting line here. I think Ash says this. He says maybe something trying to force its way into our world.
Yeah.
You know.
And then they hear a noise coming.
Like you wonder, like, what the hell does the demonic realm look like? You know, when you say stuff like that, which they don't really explore that in any of the movies. I don't know if they do in the show.
In the show, if I remember correctly, because it has been a while, but I think they touch upon it a little bit. Like you get some glimpses into basically what hell looks like, but they don't really spend a whole lot of time dwelling on it.
Maybe it just looks like Mordor. Or the Phantom Zone from Supergirl. Well, if that's the case, at least they have lots of squirt there.
Yeah.
It is, that means, okay, with this movie, it is ridiculous how fast-paced this movie is.
Yeah, there's like, after all the characters arrive at the cabin, it just never slows down.
They're not wasting any time here. You know, they're not. they just barely like are giving you a little bit of time to settle in, but after that, it's a roller coaster ride.
Yeah. And that's honestly, I think I mentioned this before. I think that's honestly why it was so great watching this one back to back with the first Evil Dead, because it's so much build up and then it just takes off like a rocket.
There's like the phrase cut to the chase. And
Yeah.
this movie basically took that as don't cut to anything except the chase.
Start at the chase.
Because it's kind of exhausting at some point. But anyway, a floating face shows up.
And it's the spirit of Professor Noby.
Yeah. Or Grandpa Seth from Troll 2. Yeah. And it tells him to read the book.
Yeah, read the pages that Annie just found. Yeah, so what happens is after Professor Noby's spirit disappears, Bobby Joe says something like, "Your hand's a little clammy, Jake." And Jake's like, "I ain't holding your hand." And they look down, and Ash's hand is holding her hand.
I forgot to write that part down, but yeah, I do remember that, though. Yeah, that was pretty good.
Yeah, but then the light goes out, and Bobby Joe just disappears.
Yeah, she runs out into the woods, and at this point, I'm like, oh god, I don't like where this is going.
Yeah.
If you remember what happened in the first movie.
Yeah, with the trees. Because it basically launches her full speed into a tree. And I don't know if you noticed this, but when you watch, like, there's, like, tree branches that go into her face, and they're actually, like, pulling on her face, and you can see, like, her skin starting to come out a little bit.
Oh, God.
Like, it's pretty...
It's going so fast that
it does. It does.
Basically, she's just getting attacked by the angry trees from the Wizard of Oz. You know, they're wrapping her up, ripping her shirt, and just throwing her through the trees. And I gotta say, the special effects here, they're really good. You know, they're better than the first one. Like, it actually looks like the tree is attacking her.
Yeah.
Basically just pulling her through the woods. If I remember right, that's the last we see of her. And again, I don't think the Lorax has anything to do with these trees.
So, back at the cabin, Annie is going through the pages of the Necronomicon that she found on her trip, and she ends up finding a page that depicts a hero from the year 1300 AD who supposedly dispelled of all evil.
Don't they, like, break, like, glass on the book?
Yeah.
And isn't there, like, a rainbow or something?
I don't remember if there's a rainbow, but, like, I remember the shot was... as Bobby Joe was flying into the tree, they then, like, the transition is then the glass smashes when she smashes into the tree.
I misread my notes because I was including a Reading Rainbow reference.
So yeah, she's looking at this page that has this legendary hero from 1300 AD who apparently destroyed all evil. And I think Jack
to destroy the evil, and then I think Ash says, didn't do a very good job.
Yeah, yeah.
Which I like how sarcastic Ash is in this movie too.
It's pretty funny. And there's actually
really funny in this movie.
There's actually something I'd like to point out, by the way, about this page. If you look underneath the drawing, you can see a picture of the Triforce from The Legend of Zelda.
Really? Oh man.
Yeah.
That's the second movie we've done on this podcast to reference the Triforce then.
Although the first one was probably just a fan translation thing.
True, yeah. This one, yeah. And they're basically reading about the prophecy. They figure out a way to see a physical manifestation of the evil.
Yep. And then, like, another passage that will create a rift in time and space to suck away the evil.
To, like, send it back, yeah.
Yeah.
Send it back to wherever it came from, yeah. That is until
Jake ruins everything.
Yeah. I was trying to remember who it was, what the guy's name was. But yeah, he ends up basically betraying them. It's too brute.
And there's actually something about this scene that I didn't quite understand. So, Jake takes away the pages of the Necronomicon, and he's like, these aren't going to save us, and throws them in the cellar.
He's like holding a shotgun to them and threatening them.
Yeah, so why did he throw the pages in the cellar and not in the fire? He was standing right in front of the fire when he took the pages.
And another thing, despite all the shit he's seen that night.
Yeah, how does he not believe? Oh, shit. Hold on, give me a second.
Oh no, what happened?
I just got a warning that my computer had 5% battery left. I forgot to plug in my laptop.
Oops.
Yeah, we almost lost that recording.
But yeah, despite seeing all of this shit, he still ends up betraying them.
Yeah.
I mean, good lord, yeah. While out there, he shouts Bobby Joe's name over and over again.
Which ends up drawing the evil back to their location.
That's also a really stupid thing to do. Just run around in a dark forest at night shouting someone's name.
And so it ends up throwing
one that's in the possessed forest of hell. I mean,
yeah.
And then he gets attacked by a possessed Ash.
Yep.
Which that was something I wasn't expecting.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting Evil Ash, or not Evil Ash, but Deadite Ash to come back again.
Evil Ash in the next movie, if I remember right.
Yeah.
Annie, she runs back to the cabin and finds the skeleton knife from the first movie, which that's still a little nice bit of continuity there. I'm glad they included that.
If I remember correctly, though, it looks different than the knife in the first movie.
Oh, does it?
Because I think the knife in the first movie looked like an actual, like, dagger, so it had, like, a steel blade. It was just the head was, like, very ornate. But the dagger in this movie, it looked like a spine, almost.
And she ends up accidentally stabbing Brutus, and and she gets attacked again by demonic Ash, which good lord.
Yeah.
You're waiting for some breathing room in this movie, and it keeps faking you out. You're just throwing more stuff at you. And she drags him to another room and picks up an axe, which, but then puts it down as he is dragged in the cellar by the other demon. Which, why didn't she attack the demon with the axe?
Great question.
Like, that would have been really helpful. Just attack both of them. Oh my gosh. Characters in this are kind of dumb. Although it is a parody, so maybe it was done intentionally.
Yeah.
A ridiculous amount of blood comes out of the cellar.
It's just like a fountain that's just pouring out.
I think it's for no reason, too. Because I don't remember there being a reason for it either.
Well, because that's while Jake is being pulled into the bottom.
Oh, no, that's right. Yeah, that's right. It's just so much stuff is happening all at once.
Yeah.
And she gets attacked by Demon Ash again and passes out.
And then Ash goes in to attack, but then sees the necklace laying by Annie's body and returns back to normal once again.
And then he screams. Bruce Campbell, he's got a lot of good screams in this movie.
Yeah.
You could probably do a top 10 list of best Bruce Campbell screams in Evil Dead 2. Just with this movie, I mean, he screams so many times, and there's so many good ones. And she, of course, attacks him with the axe, since she doesn't trust him.
Yeah. Which, that is actually, like, the only, like, really smart move that anyone's made, when you think about it. Because the Deadites have shown that they can pretend like they're their normal selves again.
No. And Ash, he just gets thrown around a bunch. I guess he does at this point. He at least realizes what kind of situation he's in, so he understands what's going on more than they do. But he still kind of acts like a klutz in this movie.
Yeah.
Albeit a slightly more confident and arrogant klutz. And they realize they need to get the pages from the book from the cellar, because of course, they need those pages.
And so then we get one of the most beautiful montages in all of cinema history.
This might be my favorite part of the whole movie, actually.
And I don't even want to describe the montage because it's just like so perfectly made that I feel like trying to explain it would just ruin it.
It's one of the most iconic gearing up scenes ever. Yeah. It's fucking awesome, and he basically makes his arm into a chainsaw and then uses the saw to make
a sawed-off shotgun.
A literal sawed-off shotgun, yeah. I love that moment right as the camera's like zooming in and the music is swelling.
Yeah.
I've actually seen a clip of when they showed this movie in a theater in like San Francisco or something, and it got to this part, and people were like cheering when it got to this part. Yeah, it was great. And then he says, "Groovy." Probably his most famous quote.
Yeah.
It's such a short scene, but it might be my favorite part.
It's so iconic.
That part stuck with me ever since I saw this movie the first time.
Yeah.
That's another thing about Bruce Campbell, too. He manages to be both hilarious and awesome at the same time in this movie,
And he's able to also play it, like, perfectly straight, too.
I mean, not very many actors would be able to deliver a line like, "work shed" with a straight face. And you're just waiting. You're like, he's gonna go kick those demons' asses now.
Yeah.
At this point, you're pumped. He goes down into the cellar, and he gets startled by an eaten-up skeleton.
Yeah, it's Jake's skeleton.
And there's also he finds some pages down there, too. And there's also just a lot of water down in the cellar.
Yeah, it's like all the pipes are just leaking everywhere.
Yeah.
That's going to cost a lot of money for the Professor Nobi.
There's a lot
over time.
There's a lot of liquid in this movie. Lots of blood. Oh, that's another thing, too, yeah. It's not their cabin. They're, like, vandalizing.
Man, once Professor Nobi gets his body back, he's going to be pissed.
I'm sure he understands, because he already had to deal with some demons before this, so... And they're reading through the book, and the first word she says from the book actually sounded a little bit like Nosferatu.
Yeah, that's one of the words that she has to read.
It's like Nosferatus or something.
And Ash ends up having to fight Henrietta one last time.
They get attacked again. Ash says, "Let's go," and "Crazy Train" by Ozzy Osbourne starts. Kidding.
Yeah, I love Ash's one-liner at the end of the fight, because he chops off Henrietta's arms and then her head. And then her still living head is squirming around saying, "I'll swallow your soul! I'll swallow your soul!" Then Ash points the shotgun at her head and just says, "Swallow this," and blows her head open.
His delivery of that line is pretty good, too. He says
it's fantastic.
He says it really sarcastically. And her, like, neck is, like, stretching out really long, too.
And it made, like, after he cut off her head, it made the noise like a balloon deflating. I don't know if you heard that.
Yeah, it did, kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
And it looks like Hydra or something. It's, like, crazy. It was, like, and also just freaky, too. I mean, you're like...
Yeah.
Once again, just when you think this movie couldn't get more nuts, it does.
So with Henrietta, they have like a stop motion claymation thing, and then like an actual puppet for like the head.
Pretty good
and the
effect
neck.
too. It's a pretty good puppet.
Yeah, that puppet just looks fantastic.
I wonder if it still exists.
That's a good question.
And just when they think they're safe,
the trees start walking and surround the cabin.
Oh no! It's Treebeard and his friends. They're getting their revenge on him, or maybe not. You know, they're not on anybody's side, so...
And so Annie starts reading from the pages, trying to perform the incantation to send the evil back from whence it came.
And they're also, like, the trees are, like, tilting the house, and I kept expecting it to turn into that scene from the Charlie Chaplin movie, The Gold Rush. The ending of that movie. It's probably a reference to that. I mean, it seems like Sam
Mm.
Raimi likes comedy, so especially from the 30s. And they see yet another demon.
So I think this one's supposed to be like the evil itself, but now it's been given a physical form.
And it looks sort of like a slimy, sentient jack-o'-lantern or something.
Yeah, and it's got like other like human-esque faces on its side. It's a really weird looking thing.
I didn't even try to describe some of the demons, and that's just because of how bizarre they look. Some of them look like something to be out like Hellraiser or whatever.
Yeah.
Or from Nightmare on Elm Street. And Annie, she gets stabbed while trying to read the passage from the book. And
by Ash's hand, nonetheless.
A portal opens up that sucks him into the Doctor Who intro. And the evil is gone.
Unfortunately, it doesn't close in time for Ash to get away.
Nope.
And so Ash and his car end up falling into like a large dirt pit or like an area with rocks.
Another thing I was going to ask too is how many different food dyes did they use in this movie? Because you got the blood, you got the green goo,
yeah,
and then you also had the blue stuff that squirts out of the evil's eye here.
You have the black stuff that came out of the wall at that one point.
That too, yeah. It's just, oh my god. And the house gets sucked into the portal because I guess it's a tornado now. And they end up in Oz. I feel like that probably was a Wizard of Oz reference.
It probably was.
There's tons of movie references in this. I mean, I wouldn't put it past Sam Raimi.
And actually, when he's going through the portal, there's actually a couple like trippy visuals that happen too. Like there's all those like lights behind them.
I didn't even try to write some of it down because it was partly just because I mean, how do you describe it? And also just it's moving so goddamn fast.
Yeah.
And he lands somewhere in the medieval era with the car.
And there's a bunch of knights that show up ready to kill him, thinking he's a deadite.
Yep, they look like they're gonna take him into a Game of Thrones episode or something.
But then suddenly a real deadite shows up, scaring off most of the knights.
Oh god, that would be such a crazy crossover because you'd have the deadites and the White Walkers. Like Jesus. And basically the knights, they try killing him.
Yeah.
Before they're just chased off by a flying monster. And he shoots its head off with his shotgun, and they all bow to him.
Yeah, and they're chanting hail. And then Ash starts to realize that he was the hero listed in the Necronomicon. And so he stands there screaming no as the film comes to an end.
And that's the ending. Every one of these movies just has one of those, like, just...
a cliffhanger ending that's just insane.
Yeah, a cliffhanger ending that isn't entirely paid off.
No.
So, yeah, that is Evil Dead 2.
It's pretty insane. And absolutely fantastic. What are your overall thoughts on the movie?
It's pretty fucking great, I gotta say.
So I think you'll remember.
Yes, it's your favorite movie of the podcast.
I was about to say, I think you'll remember at the end of the last movie, I said the first Evil Dead was my favorite movie on the podcast. Yeah, this one is now my favorite movie that we've ever done.
Which makes more sense to me, actually, because this movie is pretty amazing.
Yeah. It's fantastic. It does have a lot of those creepy, atmospheric moments that the first movie had, but it also just the whole movie is just on full blast the whole way through.
It is, yeah.
And it's just fantastic.
What this kind of reminds me of, I feel like my opinion on the first movie is kind of similar to how I feel about, like, Night of the Living Dead. Where it felt sort of like a low-budget prototype of what was to come with the next film, Dawn of the Dead, which I thought was an improvement. Which, watching those, yeah, you can definitely see the influence those movies had on Sam Raimi. Although those movies are a lot more serious, and the gore, oh man, the gore in some of those, so many intestines. But yeah, I gotta say, Evil Dead 2, I've said before, I think it's an improvement on the first one by a country mile. I like the first one. I kind of love the second one. I love the second one. It's like, it feels more polished. They had a bigger budget.
Yeah.
It's funnier. The effects are better. I think the characters are better too.
And it really feels like this is a movie where Sam Raimi is just in his element. Like, he hits his stride.
This is Sam Raimi at his most Sam Raimi. There's more blood. There's more shit happening. Like I said before, it's fucking insane.
Yeah.
That being said, it's almost too fast paced for me. It's like,
it does go really fast.
That's both an advantage and a disadvantage for me, because it doesn't care if you can't keep up. Shit's just gonna keep flying at you. This is not a movie you want to watch if you just want to relax. You gotta be in the mood for something really fucking crazy.
Yeah.
That being said, though, any problems this movie might have, you forget about them almost immediately, because it's going by too goddamn fast for you to get through.
And it always just shows you something that's just absolutely insane. And it just keeps, like, one-upping itself throughout the whole movie.
It's like being on a roller coaster ride,
Yeah.
It's fun, but then you got a lot of adrenaline, but eventually you gotta take a little bit of a break, which I definitely had to take a break after this one. Because I felt like I was just being constantly bombarded. I have a feeling that the actors in this one had a lot more fun making this than the first movie. And I gotta admire just the sheer batshit craziness of it. I mean, you kind of have to respect this movie, because it has energy, and it maintains that throughout the whole running time, too. I mean, not a lot of movies can do that, but Sam Raimi is one of those directors that just...
He's able to.
He's able to do that, yeah. To paraphrase a Bill Paxton quote from Aliens, it's like being on an express elevator to hell, going down. That being said, I can't quite see this movie being as good as Morbius. Which is the greatest...
Morbius is the first movie to sell 1 trillion tickets worldwide.
Yeah, it's the greatest movie ever made. But yeah, so Evil Dead 2,
it's fun.
It's very entertaining, yeah, I gotta say. Like I've said before, there's always a part of me that's like worried when I revisit a movie that I used to really like, that it won't hold up, but this one definitely holds up.
Oh yeah, it 100% holds up.
It's got just that perfect balance where it's scary, but it's also incredibly funny.
Yeah.
Like what we kept making the Three Stooges references, hey, if the Three Stooges were in a horror movie, what would that be?
It would probably be like Evil Dead 2, actually.
It would be a little bit different, I would assume, but...
Yeah, there is actually quite a bit of slapstick humor in this movie.
Yeah. Okay, trivia. This one got a split vote from Siskel and Ebert.
Really?
Gene Siskel gave it a thumbs down.
Really?
And said it wore out its welcome, and the characters were overshadowed by the creatures. Which, I mean, with Gene Siskel, again, I should mention, he wasn't a huge fan of horror movies.
Yeah.
He hated the Friday the 13th movies. He didn't like Aliens. I think he liked the first one, but not the second one. I don't even think he liked the Nightmare on Elm Street either, but anyway.
Huh.
Yeah.
But But it was a split vote, so Ebert liked it.
Ebert liked it, yeah. And Roger Ebert gave it a thumbs up and praised the humor, although he did agree with Siskel that it did kind of wear out towards the end. I guess just because of, like, just... Like,
all the stuff that was going on.
So much energy. You're just like, oh my god. Just... Now, what do you want to guess your buddy gave it?
It's out of 4 stars, right?
Correct, yeah.
He probably gave it a 2 because Batman Forever is a better movie than Evil Dead 2.
So you agree with it? No, I'm kidding. Leonard Maltin gave it 3 out of 4 stars.
So it's of equal quality as Batman Forever.
He called it vivid, fast-paced, spectacularly gory, and highly original.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that.
Although, there's a little note here. Apparently, he originally gave it 2 out of 4 stars.
Why?
So I guess he changed his mind on it at some point when he was doing his movie guides. And for reference, he gave the first one, I think, 2.5 out of 4 stars.
Huh.
So, yeah.
I'm going to have a word with this man.
The rat in the cellar was nicknamed Senor Cajones by the cast and crew. That's pretty good. 20th Century Fox and Universal Pictures both passed on the movie.
Huh.
2 really huge studios, and they didn't want this movie. I can't.
They didn't want
why.
money.
I cannot imagine why. So they got kind of a limited release, you know, when it came out. So I guess, like, it mostly got its fan base from, like, VHS sales later on.
Yeah.
Like the first one. Apparently the game Doom took inspiration from this movie.
Really? Oh, yeah. So, apparently, I just looked this up. So, John Carmack, who was the lead programmer at id Software, who made the game Doom, was partially inspired by Evil Dead to come up with a game where you fight demons in a similar way.
If you look closely in the basement, you can see what looks like Freddy Krueger's glove hanging there.
Yep. Knew about that one.
Which... I would have loved to have seen this crossover.
Yeah.
There's even parts of the movie that already feel like Nightmare on Elm Street. I mean...
Yeah, like all the blood fountains.
And just the weird design of the demons, too. I mean, Freddy Krueger gets some weird designs in some of the sequels. This is apparently one of Edgar Wright's favorite movies, which makes a lot of sense, actually. I feel like Shaun of the Dead, I feel like, especially had to have taken some inspiration from this. And how even some of the editing in, like, Hot Fuzz, I can see, like, a few similarities in the action. Just some of the ridiculous deaths, too. I mean, during the scene where the severed head of Linda bites Ash's hand, Bruce Campbell says the line, "work shed." This line was later redubbed in post-production due to the quality of the audio, giving a strange, slightly disproportionate sound to the audio.
Yeah, it's pretty noticeable.
And apparently 9 years later, while filming his cameo in Escape from L.A., the first thing Kurt Russell said to Bruce Campbell on the set was jokingly, "Say, work shed."
Nice to know that Kurt Russell watched Evil Dead 2.
I can kind of see that, yeah. Because you also have, like, Big Trouble in Little China, that's also got kind of this horror and comedy tone to it. I don't know if you've seen it before or not. I don't like it as much as Evil Dead, though, or Evil Dead 2, but it's entertaining. It's an entertaining movie. Of course it is. I mean, it's John Carpenter.
Yeah. Hold on a second. I'm going to move my cat. She's... Alright.
Cat. What's your cat's name?
Pixie.
Pixie?
Yeah, she's a little Russian blue.
Yeah. Stephen King was such a huge fan of Evil Dead that he convinced producer Dino De Laurentiis over dinner, who was producing King's Maximum Overdrive at the time, to have his production company, DEG, finance Evil Dead 2. So again, you can partly thank this movie's success
on Stephen King.
On Stephen King, yeah.
I can't believe it was during Maximum Overdrive, too. The best Stephen King movie. When you think about it, it is technically the most Stephen King movie.
It's the only one he directed. He had, like...
Wasn't he, like, out of his mind on cocaine at the time?
He was doing cocaine at the time, yeah. And I think he disowned the movie later, just 'cause...
Yeah.
And just decided he wasn't going to direct it. He wrote it, too. And, yeah, it was based on one of his stories, that's right. Maximum Overdrive is a pretty entertaining movie, to be fair.
It's very fun.
And apparently it's another movie that Leonard Maltin does not think is as good as Batman Forever.
Of course. Leonard is a disappointment to us all.
Apparently he gave it a bomb rating. That's the lowest you can get from Leonard Maltin.
Really? So is that like below a 0?
I think bomb just is a 0.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, Stephen King, thanks for making Evil Dead 2 possible. And also just for making a lot of other great stuff, too.
Yeah.
Including Maximum Overdrive. The large demonic head Ash battles in the climax of the film which the crew nicknamed the Rotten Apple Head, was too large and cumbersome for the crew to carry back to California, so it was left in North Carolina and soon disappeared.
Who would lug around a giant-ass demon head?
Its whereabouts, they did find it actually, its whereabouts were unknown for a number of years until it was found in a Halloween haunted house attraction just outside the original shooting location of Wadesboro, North Carolina.
Can you imagine you just go into a haunted house and suddenly there's just a full-scale Evil Dead 2 prop?
I wonder how many people saw it and knew what it was from. That is... Of the trivia facts on this podcast, that's definitely one of the most amazing ones. I mean,
yeah,
that's pretty great. What's next? Did they find, like, some props from, like, Nightmare on Elm Street or Friday the 13th and put those into a haunted house? Oh, wow, that's interesting. Most of the film was shot on a set built inside the gymnasium of the J.R. Faison Junior High School in Wadesboro, North Carolina, which, again, I never would have noticed.
Yeah, no, that... I wonder what parts of it all... So, like, did they build the cabin set inside of the gymnasium?
It just says most of the film. So I'm assuming the stuff inside the cabin.
Yeah. Huh.
Because they obviously didn't shoot the outside in a gymnasium. Yeah. Unless, who knows, maybe it was some weird fucking gymnasium that was, like, growing plants and stuff, like, like Max from Where the Wild Things Are was going on a wild rumpus or something. Rosebud, the supposed film production company, was not a real institution. Producer Dino De Laurentiis was forbidden to release an unrated movie through his own company, so Rosebud was created specially for the purposes of releasing Evil Dead 2.
Well, that's an impressive fake studio there.
That's funny, yeah. Wonder if Charles Foster Kane had anything to do with this studio. The recap of The Evil Dead includes a shot where the evil force... I didn't realize it was called the Evil Force, runs through the cabin and rams into Ash. When this shot was filmed, Bruce Campbell suffered a broken jaw when Sam Raimi, who was operating the camera, crashed into him with a bicycle. Or so people were led to believe. This was a story concocted by Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell as a gag to see how many people would believe it actually happened. I don't know, that sounds pretty plausible to me.
It does, especially with how that camera moves. Huh.
Often considered to be a remake of The Evil Dead. However, this is not accurate. The rights to show scenes from the original could not be obtained to recap what happened, so the beginning was remade to explain how Ash got to the cabin, etc. Because I guess they were like, oh, well, how are people going to know if they haven't seen the first one?
Yeah. I mean, can you imagine if the movie just started at the scene where Ash got attacked by the evil force? How confusing that would be.
Just like, oh, this crazy guy was just running through the forest, and like, what is going on? That's sort of like when they did the Road Warrior, they included like the little recap at the beginning. Even though a lot of that, you could probably just have it be a standalone film, but okay.
Yeah.
Ash's chainsaw appears to switch hands in one scene. This is because Sam Raimi decided Ash should walk the opposite way across the room in that scene, so he flipped the negative.
That's certainly something you can do, I guess.
I feel like I've heard of this happening before, too, actually. Just, editing tricks.
Yeah.
Sometimes you flip the shot, so you're like, that looks better, even if it doesn't make sense. And apparently this is Bruce Campbell's favorite film of the trilogy, which, understandable. I mean, it's an improvement on the first film, and it's a hell of a lot of fun, so...
Yeah.
I haven't rewatched Army of Darkness yet, so... Because I remember when I originally watched them, I remembered Army of Darkness and Evil Dead 2 being pretty close in quality.
From what I remember, it is pretty fun. It's very different, but it's still really fun.
Again, I'll have to rewatch them. It's just been a long time since I've seen them. So.
Yeah.
I think the thing with Army of Darkness is it feels like I've seen it more recently just because I've watched so many of the clips from it. I've referenced so many clips from it. Sam Raimi's original idea for the sequel was to toss the character of Ash through a time portal to the Middle Ages.
So, Army of Darkness.
Yeah, basically the ending of this movie and Army of Darkness.
Huh.
Apparently the smoke coming from the chainsaw was tobacco smoke.
Really?
Sam Raimi rigged tubing to the back of the chainsaw, hid off camera, and blew cigarette smoke through the tube to create the effect. Oh, great. You just gave everybody cancer now.
Yeah, Bruce has now got secondhand smoke cancer.
Bruce Campbell completely improvised the scene where he fights his possessed hand in the kitchen of the cabin.
That's pretty awesome.
Sam Raimi praised his performance and used the first take for the film. Yeah, that is pretty cool. And that makes that scene even more impressive to me now.
Yeah, just thinking about all the stuff he breaks in that scene.
And also just, like, he had to actually pretend like this hand was really attacking him too, and it feels I mean, he looks like a guy who's getting attacked by his own hand. The producers insisted upon using different colors of blood to avoid an X rating. This proved futile, as the MPAA gave the film an X anyway, and the film was ultimately released unrated.
Is that why Ed's blood was green and no one else's?
And why there's, like, the blue liquid that shoots out of the evil's eye at one point? Yeah, it might be. I think they kind of tried to... That's kind of what happened with a Taxi Driver, actually, because the ending of that, it was so bloody, and in order to, like, avoid the X rating, they tinted it a bit. So that's why, like, during the whole shootout, it looks kind of grimy.
Huh.
And many scenes were deleted from the movie, and according to official reports, all of them and original version of the movie are lost.
Really? That kind of sucks.
Because, again, I mean, this was back when they didn't really take... A lot of movies they just didn't take the deleted scene seriously. They're like, it's not going to be in the theatrical cut, so let's just ditch them, you know?
Yeah.
Although occasionally you'll find some deleted scenes, you know, from older movies. But among some of the scenes are Henrietta in her rocking chair while the professor reads the incantations, and her demonic eyes are unveiled in the cabin's light.
That's actually... I might be wrong, but I think that actually shows up in the Ash vs. Evil Dead series. Like, they recreate that scene in, like, season 2 or something.
Oh, wow, really? Huh. Linda's severed head throwing up black bile on Ash when trapped in the vice. Which is why black slime suddenly appears around her mouth in the final scene. Linda's severed head extending its long snake-like tongue into Ash's mouth while in the rocking chair. That's gross. An extended take of the blood flood with green and yellow blood. I assume some of this also might have just been cut so they wouldn't get the X rating.
Yeah.
An extended sequence of the half-headed Ed running after the characters and eventually is chopped to pieces with its body parts flopping on the floor.
That sounds like something out of the first Evil Dead, almost.
What in the fuck? A possessed Ash eating a squirrel as he runs after Annie?
Hell yeah, why didn't that one make it in the movie?
I hope that wasn't a real squirrel. Good lord. That is such a mistake. You just killed your girlfriend and you ate a squirrel.
Squirrel.
Is that supposed to be
fine?
Ash's demonic face morphing back to normal after taking his dead girlfriend's necklace.
It does seem like a strange one to cut, because I feel like that would have taken some amount of, like, special effects to do.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe they were just like, there's already too many effects in the movie. I mean, because to be fair, I mean, there are a lot of effects shots in this. Fans of the movie did manage to find a very rare 36-minute work print of the film, which only has very early versions of opening and ending scenes, and a few extra shots, including an old rare TV version of the movie with many alternate and extended scenes. But unfortunately, this doesn't include all the famous deleted scenes. Because back when they would like show movies on TV, they would sometimes, in order to get more ad revenue, they would add in some of the deleted scenes.
Huh.
And that's another thing, like, with all the costumes and stuff, like, would have been fucking hot in those. I mean,
yeah, like that. Especially that Henrietta suit. That looks like that would have been just torture to wear.
Because I'm reading here that like Ted Raimi, he was like wearing that, and there was like a heat wave going on. So like,
yeah, that would suck.
The actors were completely blind when they had to wear opaque contact lenses when they were playing possessed versions of their characters.
I think I've heard of that before.
The only way they knew how and where to move was through rigorous rehearsals. Gotta give the actors a lot of credit for that. Oh.
Yeah.
That might explain a little bit why the demons stumble around.
Yeah.
So that kind of adds to the effect now I think of that. Oh, the sounds of the evil traveling through the forest were a combination of Sam Raimi's voice and audio samples of Orson fucking Welles.
Congratulations, Orson, you're in Evil Dead 2.
Technically making this the last film he appeared in any capacity.
What a beautiful legacy. It's like how John Wayne appeared in Star Wars.
Yeah. That makes that John Wayne's last movie too. That's so funny. I wonder what audio it was. Was it from the War of the Worlds broadcast or like? Huh. And it definitely does not sound like Orson Welles.
Yeah.
The eyeball swallowing shot was actually filmed in reverse.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Oh, that's interesting. Sam Raimi and Rob Tapert's original idea for the film's plot had Ash held captive in the cabin by a group of escaped convicts searching for buried treasure.
So it would have been, "Oh brother, where art thou?"
Do not seek the treasure. That would make that a really different movie.
Yeah.
You two are just dumber than a bag of hammers. I want to see this crossover now. Yeah, that would have been very different from what actually happened. Yeah, which I'm fine with that. I'm fine with what they actually went with.
Yeah,
because that was one thing I actually thought was kind of interesting was that Annie's like dad was the professor.
Yeah,
in that cabin, so it actually makes sense for them to be there.
Yeah, and it's not some sort of weird Deus Ex Machina.
And the whoever it is that plays Annie, she has better chemistry with Bruce Campbell than with the actors in the first movie too. So there's that. Oh, you want to guess the timestamp of when Ash first utters his signature comment, "Groovy"?
I'm gonna guess it's. Give me a second. I'm gonna guess it's 57 minutes in.
A little higher than that.
An hour and 10 minutes?
A little lower than that.
Hour and 7 minutes.
Yes, an hour and 7 minutes.
Huh. That's pretty late into the movie.
Yeah, groovy. And that's probably the best part of the movie, too. I mean, the two moments of this movie that have always stood out to me are when the deer head is laughing at him.
Yep. And then groovy.
I'm not even kidding. After, I rewatched the movie, the next few days, I kept rewatching just that clip.
Yeah.
Of him, suiting up and, the music. Because I love that moment so much. It's so great. Oh, apparently this was shot in the same town that The Color Purple was shot in.
Really?
Two very different movies right there.
Yeah.
And that's another crossover that would be very bizarre.
So yeah, that was Evil Dead 2. And in my opinion, the best movie we've watched on this podcast so far.
I wouldn't say it's the best movie we've watched on the podcast so far, but it's pretty damn good. It is.
It's highly entertaining.
It'd be a contender for the top 10, probably.
Yeah.
For me, at least.
That's acceptable.
I'm trying to... let me see. It's just that we've watched a lot of really, really good movies. So, because, you got the Star Wars movies for it to be. Yeah, it's the first three at least. The first two Alien movies. The first two of the Dark Knight trilogy. But you know what? I think I actually might put it in the top 10. Now I think about 1, 2, 6, 7. That's 7. Yeah, that'd probably put it at 8, maybe. It makes it into the top 10 for me of the movies we've done on the podcast. But it's just we've done so many, movies that it's hard to determine the exact spot. But yeah, it'd be in the top 10 probably. I'd put it above the Mad Max movies, just because while watching them, I was like, because this is a faster paced movie than the Mad Max movies.
Yeah.
So he has that advantage. Because I remember watching the Mad Max movies again, and I'm like, I didn't want to admit it to myself, but I wasn't enjoying them quite as much as I used to, if I'm being totally honest.
For me, it was the first time I saw almost all of those movies.
Like, I enjoyed them, though. Well, with the exception of Thunderdome, obviously.
Yeah.
But I guess I didn't like them as much as I used to. But they were really good, though, to be fair.
Yeah.
But it's just there's other movies putting it into perspective, there's just other movies on the podcast that I've liked more than those, Evil Dead 2 being one of them.
And then, I guess with that, we'll be back next time with The Army of Darkness.
Yeah, I'm really curious is it called The Army of Darkness?
I think it's just Army of Darkness.
The Army of Darkness. Which, it's funny that it's the third one of the series, yet...
It has a completely different title.
And also the first one that both of us saw.
Yeah.
Because, like, when I first saw it, I didn't realize it was a sequel.
Yeah. Not only a sequel, but the third in a trilogy.
Yeah. Because it's not called Evil Dead 3 Army of Darkness. It's just called Army of Darkness. It's like they were trying to, like...
obfuscate it as much as possible.
That's weird that they did that. Like...
Yeah.
I guess it's sort of like what they did with the Road Warrior, where a lot of the advertisements, they didn't even mention the first Mad Max movie. They were trying to have it be its standalone thing, which is strange, because the first Mad Max movie was a huge hit.
Yeah.
It'd be like if Superman 2 was not called Superman 2, it was called something else, like...
Yeah.
Attack of the Kryptonians or something. There we go, yeah. I guess that's sort of what happened with the Rambo movies.
Yeah.
First Blood, Rambo, First Blood Part 2, and then Rambo 3.
And then Rambo.
How is the fourth one the only one that's called just Rambo? That's so confusing. But
anyway, with that, we will be back
really
next
excited,
time.
Though, to watch the next one. I'm really excited.
It'll be very interesting to see.
Yeah, it's been a really long time since I've seen it. And I want to figure out, do I like Evil Dead 2 more or this one more?
And with that, roll the Andy Griffith.
Yep, roll the Andy Griffith clip, yep.
Good night, you stupid idiot. Good night, you miserable slob.